If you play harder than your opponent and you're more physical than your opponent, you're always going to have a chance. The more I know pre-snap to tell me what's going to happen, the better chance I have to be. So that's an important part of it. Developing that football IQ essentially is critical. Those poor guys in that room, I was the third O-line coach they'd seen probably in about a month and a half. I mean, he demanded that everybody held up the standard of in our room and our team. And he was able to do that because he was the hardest working player on the team as well. Chris Kapilovic, I coach offensive line. Yeah, I've had a unique journey. Not to go too long into this, but basically when I went to college, I thought I wanted to be an attorney. So I was kind of thinking the pre-law route and all that good stuff. And about middle of my junior year, life started getting real. You know, not a lot of 6-foot old linemen going to the NFL. And, you know, I'm like, do I really want to be in a suit and in a courtroom and doing and sports and ball had always been my passion. So coaches served a strong mentorship role for me as a kid. You know, my parents had gotten divorced, didn't have dad in my life for a while, and it was, those guys really filled an important role for me. And I felt like if I can be in the sport I love and the passion I have for it and also fill a role like that for kids coming up, you know, what better career could there be, right? So after my senior year, the NCAA cut GAs by 60%. So there used to be 5 GAs, they cut them to 2 that year. And so my job essentially got cut. So I went back and coached high school football in Arizona, where I'd gone to high school, thinking that colleges would hire high school coaches on a regular basis because you're losing 60% of your entry-level position. So, you know, I loved coaching high school football, great impact with the kids, but, you know, being in the classroom and all that good stuff wasn't really what I wanted to be. I wanted to be ball 24/7 year round. You know, unique experiences. I coached high school basketball for 5 years, you know, so I coached basketball as well as football, which I love basketball. Maybe it's something about working with 5 guys, right? It's the same deal, right? So, but I really wanted to kind of try to pursue the college thing. So I took a job at a junior college, increased my network, had 2 really good linemen. Everybody was recruiting, got myself to get in front of a lot of people. And the University of Kansas had 2 offensive line coaches. They let one go and they wanted to hire a kind of a GA type guy that was experienced, that could actually coach with the O-line coach that was there. So I interviewed the job and got it. It was interesting though, you know, we didn't have kids, but I was married, we had a house, you know, my wife just got a promotion at her job, you know, so we were doing pretty good. I remember my house note back then was $600 a month, so we were living pretty good, right? This job in Kansas paid $19,000, right? So I look at my wife, I'm like, I just don't know if we can do this. And all credit to her. She's like, it's what you always want to do. We don't have kids. I'll find a new job. So we packed it up, sold the house, and went to Kansas. Was there for 2 years. Then I got an opportunity to have my own room in college at Alabama State University down in Montgomery here. So I've been in this state. We were there for 5 years. My oldest son was born in Montgomery. Great experience there. Got a chance to be a coordinator the last 3 years. Tavares Jackson was my quarterback, which, you know, he was a 2nd-round pick quarterback, played in the league for quite a while and made me a great play caller, right? All of us coaches think we're gurus, we're as good as our players. We gotta have great players. So then I had the opportunity to go to my alma mater at Missouri State, and then broke in after 2 years there at Southern Miss. So I went to Southern Miss, was there for 4 years, and you know, our last year there, we won 12 games, won the conference championship, beat the number 6 team in the country, a lot of opportunities, and the head coach, Larry Fedora, I was with, went to the University of North Carolina, so I went there with him. And so spent 7 years there, and then was at Colorado for a year, Michigan State, and then had an opportunity, the blessed opportunity to come here at Alabama. You know, so when I was talking to him about this job, there was a couple guys on staff. Robert Gillespie I coached with in North Carolina. Rick Dannison in the weight room. He was with us at Michigan State. On game day, Rick was in charge of keeping me off the field at Michigan State. So he was following me around, pulling on my belt all the time. And I really wasn't an issue, but our head coach was very nervous about that. So I would give Rick a hard time sometimes, kind of go out there a little bit just to make him work a little extra. So we had a great relationship. And then Kane Womack, unique story. So Kane's dad, Dave Womack, recruited me to college. So it's crazy to think. Kane's dad was sitting in my living room when I was getting ready to pick what school I was going to. And then fast forward, I'm playing at Missouri State, and Kane's is getting probably boring, a little rugrat then. And then I get to Southern Miss, and Kane was a senior that year. And so the next year, he actually was my GA for a short period of time. And I laugh because Kane, you babysat my kids one time, right? So, it's just a full circle. And it's always a great example. I always talk about, it doesn't matter what position you're in or what level you're at. You always treat people with respect and how you want to be treated. I suppose if I would have treated Kane bad as my GA, he probably would have been too high on recommending me when this job opened up. So we always kept in touch, and he's done a tremendous job. So it was a unique experience from that perspective, and I've kind of seen it all. I've worked at all levels, worked my way up, and it really forces you to appreciate where you're at. Well, I think obviously there's a huge technical side to this. I feel like the great thing about our position is we're striving for perfection. I don't know if we'll get there, but we're always going to keep trying. There's always a technique you can learn or something you can pick up. Not everybody's built the same. One technique may work for one kid and may not work for the others. So that's a big part of it. But then I also feel like if you play harder than your opponent and you're more physical than your opponent, you're always going to have a chance. Those other things got to tie in, but that's something we preach. We push our guys. Everything's graded in practice and games, effort included. So our guy, we talk about, there's no talent to be able to play hard and be physical, right? So that's just a want to. It's got to be in you. And as a coach, I try to motivate him to be that. So playing hard, playing physical, and then the technical part of it's a huge part of it as well. 100%. It's always funny if you get people that kind of sit in a meeting that really maybe haven't been in the O-line world. They're always amazed at the amount of information that those guys have to digest and communicate on every play. You can be up front and one guy on the defense could change positions and it could change the calls for all five of us. So communication is critical. You have to spend a tremendous amount of time studying all of the assignments we have, the calls we have to make, and if you're just putting in the time when you're here, you'll never be a great one. And so, the guys understand what it takes. There's a constant flow of guys coming up to the offices after practice at different times to meet extra with me or my two assistants. And if you play football, especially offensive line, and you're always reactionary to what happens, the guys we're blocking are better athletes than us. We're always going to be playing from behind, right? The more I know pre-snap to tell me what's going to happen, the better chance I have to be. So that's an important part of it. Developing that football IQ essentially is critical. Yeah, it's by the time I got here, it was about this time last year, and those poor guys in that room I was the third O-line coach they'd seen probably in about a month and a half, so who is this guy? Are we changing things? And, my job, like I told them, is first of all, I got to earn their respect by showing them I know what I'm doing and I'm going to help make them better. But they also got to earn my respect to who's going to be on that field playing for us on Saturdays. And I really felt like about the third practice of spring ball, it kind of clicked, I think they kind of started understanding what my expectations were and what I wanted. I felt like they kind of started seeing that things that I was teaching them were conducive for them being successful. And I felt like I took off from there. We get to the season, we lose Proctor in pregame warm-ups of the first game. We had a pretty solid first game. Then the second game was not a great game for us up front in the sense of penalties and just some things that did not go well. And we went down to the wire in that game, which caused a lot of people to have anxiety, me included. And, we got Proctor back going to the Wisconsin game. We kind of had the lineup going there in a good place. And I felt like that game, we played a really strong game. We were physical. We kind of dominated the line of scrimmage and we're very sound in our scheme and techniques. And I felt like that's when we kind of really started to make a push. There were some up and down moments throughout the year. Obviously, the LSU game was a great experience for us. First half of Georgia probably couldn't get any better offensively. I can't tell you that all of us across the board were perfect that first half, but everybody else put on a show. We had some really good. We were blocking some dudes, and to get out of that game without giving up a sack, and a lot of that was obviously Jalen's legs as well, but it showed a lot of what our potential was. And I always said this about great offensive lines. It's about consistency, right? Those up and down moments got to disappear. When we're consistent, we can be great. So that would be my thing. Is we had some really good moments last year. There's some moments I thought we could be better, and that's what we're building for. Tyler Booker's unique. I've been doing this a long time, and I've had really great players in my room. But outside of him being a great player was just his work ethic and his leadership. I mean, he demanded that everybody held up the standard of in our room and our team. And he was able to do that because he was the hardest working player on the team as well. You know, it's not very often that your best player is also, he gets voted most inspirational player for the team because just how hard he worked, and everybody strives to be that. When I walked in the room, it didn't take me long to figure out, okay, he's the alpha. Me and him got to get on the same page. And if that happens, we're going to be able to go from there. So he and I have a great relationship. I was blessed to be able to coach him and just try to help him along in his journey. And like I said, dominant player, physical, everything you want in a player, he's got it. You know, the mental approach, going to ask questions, going to be sure, put the extra time in. So can't say enough good things about him. I'm really excited to see where he goes from here. We just spoke the other day, and he's heading over to the combine, and I'm excited to see where he ends up. Yeah, it's ready or not, here we go, right? And Caden Proctor had surgery, so he's going to miss most of spring ball. So I'm disappointed about that because I really wanted to continue to see his growth there. But anytime somebody loses reps, that means other guys are going to gain reps. So we're going to get some of these young guys that have come in are going to get a lot of reps, maybe more reps than we would originally have thought, but that's going to give them an opportunity to grow. We've got a great nucleus of guys coming back. You know, Parker at center is a tremendous player, understands the game. You know, J-Rob was battling injuries all year. He's finally starting to get healthy. You know, Gino played a vital role for us. We've got Cam Dewberry who came in. We have high expectations for him. You know, the guys like Olos and Joe and Poe and Sanders and all those guys are working and competing. Plus the class we brought in, those guys have been exceptional. So there's going to be some good battles, some good competition. You know, Arkell that came in, he's going to get a bunch of reps at tackle. And so what I'm looking for is great competition inside, and we're trying to find who are the guys that can play on the edge for us and be able to count on Saturdays. Yeah, it's recruiting is critical to everything we do. It's an everyday thing. When I look at linemen, you know, the first thing is, do they have the physical attributes, right? So there's got to be a certain size there and certain weight. Then you start looking at their feet, because I swear I feel like the defensive linemen are becoming better athletes each year, you know, better and better. So do they have the feet and the ability to keep up with those guys and dominate those guys? And then tying into that is, can they play with a bend? Like when you get kids that are kind of stiff and bent at the waist, that causes issues. You'll get some guys in high school that, you know, you got a six kid blocking a 5'10" kid, right? They're gonna look high at times, but you can see if they have the ability to bend, the ability to come through their hips and be explosive. So those are the things you start looking at, and that ties in a change of direction, right? If you can bend and sink, you have good feet, you can change direction. And then you're looking for, how hard does he play? Does he play with an edge? Does he try to finish? You know, those are things that are going to become harder when you get to this level. If they're not dominating the competition at their level now, it's going to be a challenge for them. So looking for those things, you start looking for football IQ. You're talking to them, you're getting to know them. How well they retain things. You know, talking to coaches, what's their work ethic? Can they take hard coaching? Can they be pushed? You know, all those things tie together. So it'll start with those physical attributes and then go into kind of who they are as a person, because I want to have good people in my room as well. I don't mind working extra with guys and trying to get them, you know, in line to what they need to do, but you want to have good people in there, because we should have the tightest culture in the team with our offensive line and what we do, and that's important to me as well. So in recruiting, that's probably the main things I'm looking for.